CM Punk has once again made headlines for his blunt honesty, and this time he brought up The Undertaker in a way that had fans buzzing. When people think of The Undertaker, they remember the mystique, the dark character, the aura of a larger-than-life presence who never broke kayfabe. For decades, The Undertaker remained in character, rarely speaking out as Mark Calloway, and protecting his gimmick as much as anyone in wrestling history. But in recent years, that has all changed. The Undertaker has fully transitioned into his real-life persona, opening up about his career, his life, and giving fans a completely new view of who he really is. That shift is part of what led Punk to make his sharp comments. The Undertaker, since his retirement in 2020 after the legendary Boneyard match with AJ Styles at WrestleMania, has been more visible in a way we never saw before. During that feud with AJ, we already started to see flashes of Mark Calloway bleeding into the character, showing more of the man behind the Deadman. He even referenced himself directly in promos, something unheard of for years. After the Boneyard match, WWE rolled out the highly praised Last Ride documentary series, which peeled back the curtain on his career and struggles, showing fans his true self in a way nobody expected. From that moment, The Undertaker essentially put the character to rest and embraced being Mark Calloway publicly. He has since done interviews, podcasts, one-man shows, and all sorts of media work that the old Undertaker would never have done. And that's where CM Punk's comments come in. In an interview with Sports Illustrated, Punk was asked about the old-school mentality of protecting kayfabe, staying in character, and avoiding media appearances. The Undertaker, for decades, was the shining example of that approach, but Punk, with his usual sarcasm, threw out a shot that had people talking. He said, "Do I wish I didn't have to do interviews? The Undertaker was just lazy. That's the only reason he did that. He got away with not doing this. That's why he did it. It wasn't because he was really dead." That line instantly blew up because of how direct it was. Punk essentially accused The Undertaker of dodging the media out of laziness rather than protecting kayfabe. Now, do most people really believe The Undertaker was lazy? Not really. It's obvious that The Undertaker had one of the most unique gimmicks in wrestling history, and part of his job was to protect it. It would not have made sense to have him constantly appear in interviews out of character in the 1990s or early 2000s. Even when he did do talk shows, he stayed in gimmick, rarely spoke much, and let Paul Bearer do most of the talking. Mark Calloway has even said in the past that when he was out in public, he would wear all black, avoid speaking too much, and carry himself as The Undertaker to maintain the illusion. Vince McMahon was so protective of the character that when Calloway first got tattoos, Vince was furious, saying he should have gotten approval because it affected The Undertaker's look. That's how strict it all was. The truth is that no one but Mark Calloway could have pulled off The Undertaker character at the level he did. His attention to detail, his mannerisms, the aura he created, those are things that elevated him to legend status. And yes, part of that was the old-school mentality of kayfabe, protecting the mystique, and making sure that what fans saw on screen matched what they believed outside the ring. That's something Undertaker has even spoken about himself in later years, criticizing modern wrestling for being too flashy and move-heavy without enough psychology or story. He has said that too many finishers today get overused, too many moves happen just for the sake of happening, and not enough people are protecting the art of storytelling in the ring. He believed in making moves matter, making the finish matter, and not overexposing the business. That's exactly why kayfabe was so important to him. But CM Punk, never shy about voicing his thoughts, decided to poke fun at it, suggesting that Undertaker wasn't so much protecting the mystique as he was avoiding the grind of interviews. Punk also admitted that he himself is uneasy about doing media, saying he wants to protect the business, but he goes with the flow because it's part of the modern landscape. Punk's words carry weight because he's someone who has often clashed with the balance of protecting wrestling versus embracing its entertainment side. If you look at where The Undertaker is now, it's a fascinating contrast to his old ways. He has his own one-man shows where he tells behind-the-scenes stories about his career. He did his podcast, which WWE eventually acquired, and now co-hosts with his wife Michelle McCool. Many fans preferred the earlier version of his podcast, where he and his old friends would swap wild road stories, because that felt more authentic. His old co-host even said that's what made the podcast stand out. It wasn't about WWE stars promoting things, it was about genuine stories from the past. Now, with WWE polishing it, some feel it has lost that rawness. Still, it shows how much The Undertaker has opened up since stepping away from the ring. he remains heavily involved with WWE. He signed a long-term contract in 2019, reportedly for 20 years, ensuring he stays connected to the company. He does media appearances and promotional work, helping to represent WWE's legacy. He even appears on WWE LFG content and is active in supporting new projects. He's making the transition from legend in the ring to ambassador for the company. For fans, it's surreal to see him in this light, but it's also a reminder of how wrestling evolves. Now, looping back to CM Punk, his comments about The Undertaker are just the latest in a string of moments that keep him in the spotlight. Punk has a reputation for being brutally honest, sometimes to his own detriment, but always interesting. His relationship with WWE has been complicated, especially after his return in late 2023. His comeback was one of the most shocking moments in wrestling history, especially after years of bad blood. Since returning, he has managed to create headlines constantly, whether it's feuds with top stars, backstage drama, or his takes on the wrestling business. Recently, Punk has been trending for more than just his shot at The Undertaker. Fans are still buzzing about his feud with Drew McIntyre, which has become one of the most personal rivalries on WWE television. Punk has leaned into real-life tension, blurring the lines between story and reality, which is something he has always excelled at. He thrives in those gray areas where fans are not sure what's real and what's storyline. That's part of why his comments about The Undertaker hit so hard, because you can't tell how much is genuine critique and how much is Punk just stirring the pot. Another big talking point around Punk lately has been his health. His injuries have slowed him down at times, but he continues to push forward, and fans constantly speculate about when he'll be fully cleared for longer matches. His return to WWE television has already created some of the highest ratings spikes in recent memory, showing that love him or hate him, Punk is box office. There's also been buzz about his future direction. Will he target a championship again? Will he reignite old rivalries, perhaps even with Roman Reigns if timing aligns? Punk has positioned himself as a voice of the fans while also being a disruptor within WWE's polished machine, which makes every move he makes feel unpredictable. It's also worth mentioning that Punk, while often critical, has also shown respect for legends when he feels it's deserved. He has praised people like Bret Hart endlessly for their influence on his career. That's why his jab at The Undertaker was so surprising to many. But again, that's Punk. He says what others won't, and he does it in a way that guarantees people will talk. At the end of the day, Punk calling The Undertaker lazy for not doing interviews is less about an attack and more about reminding people of how different eras of wrestling operated. Undertaker came from a generation where mystique mattered above all else. Punk comes from an era where media is unavoidable, and wrestlers are expected to promote themselves constantly. They're two very different philosophies, and both worked in their own ways. Undertaker's character would not have been as successful if he was overexposed. Punk, meanwhile, thrives on being outspoken and unfiltered, which is why he fits in today's landscape. Fans will continue debating whether Punk's words were fair, but one thing is clear: CM Punk knows how to keep himself and his opinions in the headlines. Just as Undertaker protected his gimmick for decades, Punk protects his identity as the outspoken voice of wrestling, and both men, in their own ways, have left a permanent mark on the business.